All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, another NBA offseason video. In this video, we're going to break down and finally talk about the new draft system for the 2027 draft, the 3-2-1 draft system. It's essentially the anti-tanking parameters that the NBA has instituted, and they will put in for, I guess, this draft and the next one, and then we'll see about the 29 draft, I guess. So I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to break it down a little bit. I'm going to give my opinion. I don't think my opinion is going to be anything revolutionary, but I still want to talk about it because I said I would. So if you like what I have to say, like the video. If you have any opinions, comment it down below. And if you just like the vibes, consider subscribing. Also, at the beginning of this video, because I've been forgetting to do it, I want to thank all the new subscribers that have joined. I believe I haven't thanked anybody since we hit 19. So thank you to subscriber number 20, 21, and 22. Whatever video you liked, there's more coming, I promise. But if you are here and you listen to this, thank you so much. I appreciate all 22 of you. And 22 is significant because I think I've gotten at least 2 subscribers every month. And the goal was to just get to 20 by the end of the year. So we've already surpassed that. So anything beyond the 20 plus the 2 we already have is greatly appreciated. So thank you guys so much. Anyway, let's get into this. So the 3-2-1 draft, the anti-tanking draft. I'm going to go in between the two titles. It's basically the anti-tanking draft. And the NBA approved this, and the Board of Governors approved this on May 28th. That's when it was officially reported by the NBA themselves. They put it up on NBA.com that the bill, the proposed change has passed. So this is a little old, but I do want to talk about it. There was a lot of stuff going on over the last couple months, obviously. NBA stuff, draft stuff, not pertaining to this draft, but the draft picks in Summer League right now, and WNBA stuff. So I don't get time to talk about it now. We have time to talk about it, and we're going to get into it. So if I go to Yahoo Sports, this article is by Kevin O'Connor, formerly of The Ringer, now at Yahoo Sports, NBA senior analyst. So the NBA Board of Governors votes decisively 29-1 to approve the new anti-tanking lottery system called the 3-2-1 lottery. Starting in the 2027 draft, the lottery will expand from 14 teams to 16 teams and flatten the odds. Now, there's gonna be a lot of words thrown around. There's gonna be a lot of things said. I'm gonna try to break it down for you as much as possible, and I'm gonna try to give you guys examples based off the standings from last year. So, some things of note here from Kevin O'Connor in this summary here. This is what the lottery reform includes. So pay attention, and then we'll get to the important stuff here. All 16 teams will be drawn rather than just the top 4 as it's been since 2019. This is the second revision in 7 years. I didn't have a problem with the system as it was, but this is another revision they've made. Teams can't protect picks through the top 12. Teams can't protect picks top 12 through 15 in trades. So, 12 to 15, I guess, whatever. Teams that finish with one of the 3 worst records can't receive a pick lower than 12th, which, sure, yeah, that's fine. The first 16 picks of the second round will be inverse of the lottery order. Interesting. The lottery system will sunset after the 2029 draft, and a vote will be required to continue it or transition to a new system. So they're basically, this is the trial phase. This is your 1 month free subscription, and then you have to put in your actual credit card information. And the last one here is the NBA will have added ability to reduce teams' lottery odds, modify teams' draft position, and impose significant fines. So the NBA, for what it's worth, I guess has had a tanking epidemic. It really started back in the day. The origins of tanking was with the 76ers and at the beginning of what was deemed the process with Sam Hinkie and all those guys in that front office just saying, we're going to put the worst collection of talent out there and just call it a basketball team, and then we're going to get really good draft picks. And they managed to do it, and it's worked out. And it's been up and down, and there's been, Sam Hinkie's no longer in the NBA. as a GM or working in any capacity in the NBA, but he was the arbiter of this whole tanking stuff, and then teams started to do, and like they said in the article, 2019 they revised the draft a little bit to try to stop the tanking a little bit more, and then this is the most aggressive version of the new anti-tanking stuff. And to break it down here further from Kevin O'Connor's article, and I will leave this down below along with the NBA official, post here. So let's go through this. So the three worst records, the number of teams would be close to three, and they get 2 lottery balls each. So 3 teams, 2 lottery balls each, and the percentage odds to get the number 1 pick is 5.4. The remaining non-playoff teams, which would be 7 of them, get 3 lottery balls with a 8.1% chance of the number 1 pick. 9 through 10 seed in the play-in, those play-in teams, total of 4 teams, get 2 lottery balls, and they have a 5.4 chance at the number 1 pick. And then losers of the 7-8 play-in game, which would be 2 teams, have 1 lottery ball each and a chance of getting the number 1 pick of 2.7. So thinking about this and what I said earlier, the NBA wants the best of the worst to get top 3 picks, top 5 picks. They want teams to at least be somewhat competitive throughout the season and not just throw away the second half of the season, not just, rest players, quote unquote, for rest or rehabbing from an injury or whatever excuse they put on the injury report. They want teams to actually play their guys. They don't want what, as an example, the Utah Jazz did this year, where Lauri Markkanen really didn't play the second half of the season. When they traded for Jaren Jackson Jr., Jaren Jackson Jr. didn't suit up once for this team, right? He maybe once, maybe twice, just so the NBA would get off their back about it. Trae Young played one or 2 games for the Wizards when the Wizards traded for him from the Atlanta Hawks. There are a bunch of examples of this where teams wanted to at least be bad, really bad, to get good lottery odds. Now, coming into this next draft, the 27 draft, from my understanding, this draft coming up is not a great one. So I don't think it's going to reflect too poorly if, a really good team gets the number 1 pick. A really good team getting the number 1 pick in the 27 draft isn't as impactful as it has been over the past 3 years, where you have, a Cooper Flagg, a AJ DeBonsa, a Zion Williamson, a DeAndre Ayton at the time. I'm trying to work my way back and think about some number 1 picks from the past couple years, pre or post 2019. So you have those guys who are really impactful, and some not so much, but it's leaning more towards, not being an impactful draft. So if a really good team gets the number 1 pick, or the best or the worst gets the number 1 pick, it's not going to be detrimental. The 28 draft, however, is one I hear that is a lot better than the 27 draft. So we'll see what happens there. That's all up for speculation. But to give you guys some more context here, like I said, I'm going to try to break this stuff down for you in a way you can understand very easily, because even for somebody like me who's involved in the NBA a lot and reads all these articles and listens to a lot of podcasts about the NBA and all this stuff breaking down, it doesn't make a lot of sense. You're like, so wait, so the 3 worst records only get 2 lottery balls and they have a 5.4, but the 9 and the 10 seed also get 2 balls but have a 5.4% chance. It's very confusing, and it's a lot of numbers and it's a lot of stuff. So I'm going to go through the NBA standings on ESPN.com. If you want to play along at home, you can play along at home. But as we look here, so the 3 worst records, 3 teams get 2 lottery balls and a 5.4% chance. So those 3 teams this season, the 3 worst records were, going from bottom to top, were the Washington Wizards with only 17 wins, the Indiana Pacers with only 19 wins, and the Brooklyn Nets with only 20 wins. So those teams would have had, if this system was in place this past year, one of those teams maybe perhaps would have gotten the number 1 pick, or at least close to the top 3. That is usually how it would work in years past, where you'd be like, okay, so 3 worst teams, they should get the number 1 pick. Looking into this a bit further, you look at the Indiana Pacers, who were, I don't want to say bad on purpose. They were just coincidentally bad. They lost their best player in the finals to an Achilles injury. They not tanked the season, but they played around in the season. They didn't really take it seriously. Um, is that a team that deserves the number one pick over a team like the team right above them, the Brooklyn Nets, who has essentially nothing? They haven't done anything. They tried the Kyrie, KD, James Harden thing a couple years ago. It didn't work out, and they had to blow it up again. Some would say the Brooklyn Nets are more deserving of a number one pick than the Indiana Pacers per se, right? Even a team like the Washington Wizards, who has been rebuilding and I guess more so or less doing it the right way, has flipped the switch now, and they did get the number one pick actually this past year, but still getting the number one pick. They have AJ DeBanza, Trae Young, um, Anthony Davis, Alex Sarr. It's a crazy team, and they've been built well. Do they deserve? It's hard to do the Wizards because they do actually have the number one pick. They have AJ DeBanza. He just played in summer league yesterday. Do they deserve to have the number one pick versus a team that's been like suffering, like Brooklyn, like even Sacramento, who's at 22 wins? Um, yes and no. I feel as if the other stuff that the NBA is going to implement, where you can't have what's the rule here? I saw it here for 1 second. You can't have back to back picks. You can't have back to back number one picks, or you can't have back to back picks 3 times in a row. I think that's the stipulation. Let me find. Here it is. I found it in this article. Pick restrictions. No team's pick will be permitted to be a first pick in 2 consecutive drafts or a top 5 pick in 3 consecutive drafts. This I have a bit of a problem with, but we'll get to that. Um, so I don't know why I forget why I said that, but um, getting back to the numbers here, right? So the bottom 3 teams, in my opinion, this is just my humble opinion here. I think the Brooklyn Nets probably they needed it and they deserved the number one pick out of all these teams. Because they have nothing to look forward to. Their team is full of guys, just regular guys, just regular basketball guys. There's no like eye popping like, whoa, this guy could be the future. Whoa, there's none of that. As we get into the rest of the lottery odds here, so those are the 3 worst teams. They have a 5.4% chance. Now we go into the other teams with a 5.4% chance, and they also have 2 lottery balls for both these teams, for the 4 play-in teams, or the 9 and 10th play-in seeds. Yeah, so they have 4 teams. So the 9 and 4 play-in teams, so we're going through, let me go here. So the 9 through 4. So the 9 and 10th play-in seeds, just getting into the play-in, will get you a 4.5% chance. Or 5.5. I keep saying 4.5. It's 5.4. So in the East, that was the Charlotte Hornets and the Miami Heat. And then in the West, that was the Clippers and the Golden State Warriors. We look at this system, right? And you say, that's kind of weird. Why do these teams that are like borderline that are play-in teams really get the same chance as a team that was really, really bad? Why do they get the same chance? That's the question. It's like, And again, I bring it back to my opinion of this is like, do the Hornets previous to the LaMelo trade, but do the Hornets and Miami Heat need a number 1 pick as desperately as the Brooklyn Nets? No, they don't. They're pretty set. I mean, the Charlotte Hornets were set, and whatever happened this offseason happened, but that's in retrospective. The Brooklyn Nets probably need it the most. Is it fair for them to have the same amount of lottery balls? Literally 2 lottery balls? No, I don't think that's fair. I think the 9 and 10 should have 1 lottery ball. I just reading and digesting this, I think they need to have 1. But then we go down the list here where the odds get a little worse, and then we'll go back up to the very top. The losers of the 7-8 play-in game have 1 lottery ball, and they have a 2.7% chance. So the losers of the 7-8. This is where it starts to make a little more sense where, hypothetically, right, the play-in teams in the East, the 7-8 matchup, the loser of the 7-8 in the East, hypothetically, between the Philadelphia 76ers and the Orlando Magic, that team would have the 2.7 odds to get the number one pick, which I think is fair. Those teams, these teams on the borderline 7-8, they don't need a number one pick. They don't. Um, in the Western Conference, hypothetically, it'd be the Trailblazers versus the Phoenix Suns, and whoever loses that gets 2.7% chance and one lottery ball. Um, in the West, it's a little different. I think the Phoenix Suns could benefit from maybe not making the play in, and the Portland Trailblazers maybe could benefit from not making the play in, um, or yeah, or not making the play in. Um, it's a little different. Each circumstance is gonna be a little different, but this is what they got right about this. And the other thing, and I'm gonna circle back to it now because I can. Um, Not being able to get back to back number one picks, I think is so harmful because how the hell do you want me to build a team? And I understand the counter argument to this already would be, well, what is it? You can't have back to back big picks in where is it? Restrictions only apply. T-shirt. Yeah, NBA drafts or top five picks in consecutive or three consecutive. Uh, so you can't have back to back number one picks, and you can't have back to back top three picks. So you want me to build a team, right? With a number one pick, hopefully 1 year, and then a number four, number five guy. Do you know how rare that is? And I'm not saying like teams like, and people are gonna say, well, look what the Spurs did. They got back to back number one picks, not number ones, but back to back top three picks essentially, and they built a really good team, and they were already in the in the playoffs. And then I counter that with you look at a team like the like the Phoenix Suns of years past, where they had DeAndre and they had um, Josh Jackson, they had Mikal Bridges, who I'm not sure if those guys, the latter two, were top five picks. I'm trying to remember if they were. I don't think they were, or top three picks for that matter. But it's very interesting to see. I'll actually look at it here in a second. To have teams actually having to think about, okay, we're gonna have to start looking outside the top three, and we're gonna have to look through 4 through 5, 4 through whatever the remainder of the lottery is, versus a team like the Spurs being like, well, it's a no-brainer. We're in the top three. We'll just take whoever's left. And even in this draft as well, where you look at the top three and you look like, well, okay, so AJ is going number one, right? And then if let's say the Wizards the following year, this next year, have another top three pick, which they probably won't, but have another top three pick. They couldn't have gone and gotten, Cameron Boozer with the number three pick next year. This is all hypothetical, but in that way, it's gonna be interesting to see how teams do teams trade out of do teams willingly trade out of some of these picks and be like, it's not even worth it. We should just use this pick, right? We should use this pick in a trade, and we should just go get a guy. And I think that's what an established guy. I think that's what the NBA is trying to do and trying to, push for. Okay, so you have your one guy, you have your one number one pick or your number three pick, number two pick. Then you get a top five pick or a top three pick, and you're like, okay, let's just trade this. Let's just trade this now, and we can go get an established guy. We can go get, a Jaylen Brown, for example, just perfect fit, right? I could see it working a little bit, but at the same time, I'm sort of like, I'm confusing myself even when I'm talking about this because it's like, there are so many hoops to jump through and so many things that you have to think about now when you're trying to build a team versus in the past. And I'm not saying the past was perfect, but it was just like, again, we know we're going to get a number one pick and we know we're going to get a top five pick probably. And that's our rebuild. And then after that, after we have our two established guys, our homegrown talent, then we go out and, use the rest of our draft assets, maybe use some other young guys we have to go get another starter to pair with these young guys, like a Kevin Durant and the Rockets situation where they had Alperen Sengun, they had Jabari Smith Jr., they have Ahmed Thompson, and then they go get Kevin Durant. I think as much as the Rockets sort of are a bad example where it hasn't really worked out yet, I think that's the right way to do it. That is the perfect way to do it. And even though Kevin Durant isn't the perfect superstar or even star to pair with those young guys, I think that's how a rebuild should go. I don't think the NBA should try to dictate what these teams do outside of controlling their picks. Let's roll back a little bit here. Let's roll back because I'm talking myself in circles. I'm getting myself worked up. So the teams with the best lottery odds, the remaining non-play-in teams, there will be 7 of them. This is throughout the NBA. So just if you don't make the playoffs and you're not a bottom 3 team, you have 3 lottery balls and you have a 1.8% chance to get the number 1 pick. So let's go through the NBA this year, right? And let's see who are the worst teams not the worst, but not to make the play-in, right? So let's go down the list. Let's go down this list here, or go up this list, because the 3 worst teams, again, were the Wizards, the Indiana Pacers, and the Brooklyn Nets. Going upwards, Utah Jazz, 22 wins. Sacramento Kings, 22 wins. Memphis Grizzlies, 25 wins. Dallas Mavericks, 26 wins. New Orleans Pelicans, 26 wins. Chicago Bulls, 31 wins. Milwaukee Bucks, 32 wins. This area right here, right? I keep talking about the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets are just out of this, and they were just out of this by 2 games. And I don't think they were necessarily tanking. They weren't bad. They weren't trying to be bad. They just were bad. They were a young team with a lot of draft capital from the past years that they actually used. But we move past them, right? And we look at this area right here where it's literally the difference between a team that just missed the play-in to a team that just missed the cutoff for being 3 of the worst teams. Is 10 wins, and it's 32 wins to 22 wins in total. This is the sweet spot. This is where you want to be in the future next year to get a top pick, to get a top 3, top 5, the number 1 pick, right? Milwaukee desperately needs it. I'm going off who I think needs it, Milwaukee desperately needs it. Chicago, they're kind of coming out of it. I could still see them down in this area, and maybe finally the fortunes will turn and they could get a really good pick. Pelicans, I don't even know if they would use this pick. They're just so dead set on trying to be good. I don't even know if this would be where they end up anyway, or they would be out of this sweet spot. Dallas Mavericks could use another one, maybe, but would that count? Because I don't think they picked in the top 5. I think they picked out of the top 5 this year, or the top 3. Yeah, they definitely did. Yeah, so. In some regard, the Dallas Mavericks right now are perfectly poised to, if they can duplicate this record next year, they have their draft pick. I don't even know if they actually have their draft pick, but hypothetically, they still have their draft pick. They're the perfect team for this new system to work out for. The Memphis Grizzlies, they could for sure use one. I'm not saying they probably deserved it this year, but in the future, yeah, maybe. The Kings desperately need one, and then I don't know who wants to go to Sacramento, but the Kings need one. And the Kings the Kings were low-key weren't even terrible; they were just terribly run. And the collection of talent is very weird, and the Kings might be in the sweetest of spots to actually convince themselves that they're going to be good and still just win 20-something games and still be in this area where it's the sweet spot. And then you go to the team that just missed the cutoff, that's still in those teams that missed the play-in but are better than the bottom 3 in the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz are so much talent, they don't need this. I don't expect them to be back down here. So those teams being that I think this could work out for, let's just go off this year. We're not going to pull in any of these other teams that actually made it this past year. We're looking at the Bucks. You're looking at the Mavericks, you're looking at the Memphis Grizzlies, and you're looking at the Kings. So there are 4 teams out of these sweet spot right here that could use a top 3, the top number 1 pick. You look at the Nets, they're probably going to be back down here. The Pacers and Wizards hope to not be back down here, but that means like a team like Charlotte, a team like the Clippers, probably going to be down here, and they're going to be fighting to be potentially the best of the worst. And as we look at this, I do want to read some more stipulations to this new lottery system. As I look through this NBA post they made here, pick floor. Each draft relegated team will receive at worst the number 12 pick in the NBA draft. So if you are bad enough, if you're one of these bottom 3 teams, right? Like we said, Wizards, Indiana Pacers, Brooklyn Nets. If you're bad so many times in a year, and you may be a little bit above, you will get nothing worse than 12. Other lottery teams can fall as far as 16. So there's that deep end of the pool, and then there's that really deep end where it's like, okay, now you're being really punished for being bad. Get your stuff together. And then pick protections, like we said, the teams will will be unable to attach top 12 through 15 protections to newly drafted picks, to newly traded draft picks. So there's some stipulations with the trades now as well, with this new system. And they have a whole graph here that I'm not going to read to you guys. You guys can just look at this by yourselves. But that is the new draft system. And like I say with a lot of things, in almost everything we cover here, is it's very confusing. And the NBA and at large, basketball in the U.S. for like a casual fan has become very convoluted. And people that don't pay attention to the NBA that much um, are gonna be like are gonna be so confused when this next draft lottery comes around, and they're gonna be like, what's happening? Why is this happening? I think we just need to simplify this stuff. I understand this whole like some of these like this whole NBA page that they made, um, breaking it down. Only a few people are gonna read this. It's not that long either. It's just like I can get through this in one scroll. Um, but a lot of people aren't gonna understand this. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I understand it now that I've talked about it out loud with you guys and I've tried to take you through it. But it's like, let's just. I understand you want to stop tanking. I think the only rule you need, just don't let people have back to back number one picks 3 years in a row. You can have it 2 years in a row. That's fine. But 3 years in a row, you got to start getting your stuff together. And maybe you can tweak the top three, top five like they actually have, but all this stuff about, well, you don't want to be the worst, but you don't want to be really good. But if you're in the play-in, you have the same odds as the team that's one of the worst, and it's too much. It's really too much, and I feel like we're gonna come to 2029 when they can come revisit this, right? And we're not gonna do this anymore. I'm not saying this is gonna go bad. This is just not. It's not gonna be positive. I understand it also in the way of you want these teams, right? These I'll use the word smaller market, even though some of these aren't smaller market teams. You want these teams to be competitive. You want them to sell tickets and sell jerseys and sell all this stuff, right? Because that is what it's about at the end of the day, is money. The NBA wants to flip a profit on these franchises that are sort of like, eh, you know. You look at these teams though, right? The Bucks are pretty. I want to say prime time. The Bucks have loyal fans, right? Like we're gonna see next year how many fans actually show up now that Giannis is gone. But they have pretty loyal fans. Chicago has loyal fans. New Orleans is the only one here. Maybe New Orleans and Memphis, and maybe and Sacramento fans show up though. So I don't understand it. Maybe there's a thing I'm missing, but like teams winning. I think it's more fun for fans to root against their team and be like, let's be bad, let's be the worst team, than somebody actually rooting for their team that's in this situation to be good. Because like, there's going to be a point next year, right? And this is going to happen regardless, where we look above the teams that just missed the play in, right? Lakers, not like Clippers, Warriors, right? They're only a couple wins ahead of. Well, the Clippers were 10 wins ahead of the Bucks, but let's look at the Warriors for example, right? The Warriors were only a couple games out of being in this new sweet spot, right? For next year. I'm just using this year as an example, but this year, this next year, right? Would the Warriors just not be bad? Would the Warriors just be like, you know what, we our chances go from 5.4 to 8 point something if we just lose a couple more games and we miss the play-in? And for logically, you say that to yourself in the front office, right? If you're a front office guy, you say just lose a couple more games. Obviously, Steph, Draymond, the older guys that actually want to compete don't want to hear that. They don't want to have a chance at the number one pick. They don't care about the number one pick. But if the number one pick is that guy, maybe you could talk him into it. And there's going to be some awkward things at the end of next year. I'm already talking about 2027, which is crazy. But at the end of next year, where they're going to be playing teams that will be like, wait, let's not get in the play-in. let's reel it back in a little bit. Let's get in this range of like 32 wins, 31 wins. Where we're just on the border, and maybe if a team wins a couple games at the end and goes on a streak at the end, we can get out of the play-in and we can be in the sweet spot, right? There's still going to be manipulation of wins and losses and stuff, and I think this just makes it more convoluted and harder for the average fan to understand, and even somebody like me to understand. And unless you're like a draft nerd, unless you're like somebody who's really into this stuff, right? Unless you're somebody who just does this for a living, right? Like you literally have the title of like senior insider or analyst or whatever. I've never claimed to be any of those things. I just sit here and talk about this stuff, but um, you probably understand this a bit better. But like I said at the beginning of this video, going forward for at least the next 2 years, you want to be the best of the worst. And I don't know how well that's going to work out, but it remains to be seen. So yeah, that's it. That's the video. A little all over the place. Sorry if it was a little bit confusing at times. I do try to break this stuff down for you guys as good as I can, as good as I can. And yeah, that's it. That will probably be the last NBA stuff for a little bit now. I will enjoy some summer league, and then once we get into like the summer league sort of tournament thing in a couple days, we'll get back to some NBA stuff. Unless there's a trade, of course. If there's a trade or LeBron signs, we will talk about it. But until then, a little break of the NBA as we get into WNBA season. We are basically halfway through the season in the WNBA. We're getting to All-Star Weekend. I'll take a little break, have some fun stuff planned for you guys, and we'll get to all that. So the end screen should be playing right now. Check out the video on the left. Check out the playlist on the right. If you click my little icon right in the middle of the screen, yeah, that one right there, a little subscribe button will pop up, and you can subscribe with ease. You will be potentially the 23rd, the 24th subscriber on this channel, so I would greatly appreciate it. Like and comment as well, and I will see you guys next time. Cheers.